Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Roundtable. I'm Hunter Lee here in San Francisco, and joining me in studio as usual is Spelzy.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And joining us from Santa Monica is Travis.
Hello.
Hello. Lots to talk about this week. Amazing week of playoffs to go over in NA. Drama, of course. Twitch buying, or Amazon buying Twitch. And just now, right before we started taping, Azir, the new champion, was released. And we'll give some super preliminary and not well-informed thoughts on that at the end, so stay for that. But we'll start with this past weekend's incredible matches. Well, whatever you feel about them. Incredible matches, lots of drama. Travis, you were there. What was it like in person?
Well, there was lots of drama, Hunter. No, I'm just kidding. It was a interesting, very interesting weekend. The first day, I think, okay, so there was I had not expected Dignitas to win. However, there were a lot of really strong, Dignitas advocates going into this, a lot more than I expected. And after that first game, you're like, well, maybe something's going to happen here. And then, of course, nothing did. But it was still an interesting day. Again, it's kind of strange because there's a mixture of, these are some of the, it was great because I saw Mark Merrill say, wow, that might have been, the most epic game of League of Legends I've ever watched with the backdoors. And I saw that right after I'd seen, Thorin start retweeting a bunch of people being North America sucks. So it was a lot of mixed reactions to everything, and it was definitely interesting. The second day was just kind of depressing. I say that not because, I'm a CLG fanboy or anything like that. It was just the games were not good, and CLG just very, very much failed to live up to any of the hype. I mean, it was really cool to see Curse go through, though I think that they might be destined for forever fourth again, but we'll talk about that later. But it was just an interesting time for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So TSM Dig, day one. Close matches. All of them were very close, long, I don't know, I think Thorin, there's mixed reviews in terms of the play, but in terms of tension and drama, exciting matches.
Yeah. I think, like you said, they were kind of more entertaining than skillful. We saw really cautious play, I think, from TSM and Dig, both of the teams. I think they were really constantly on a vision war over Baron and that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because despite, I think TSM had the stronger vision control in the games, and I think we saw that actually in Travis's interview with Crumbs, he said that. But at the same time, Dignitas was making their comebacks with all of their Baron attempts and all of their kind of objective control. So somehow TSM didn't really capitalize on that.
Yeah, I think Crum admitted this in the interview. Despite being outplayed as a team, Dignitas was keeping it close for all of it. If I'm TSM, I'm not feeling incredibly confident after those games. It wasn't a particularly fluid or smooth demolition of a Dignitas team that was on the back foot and kind of seemed discombobulated. After game one, though, it was a confusing series in the sense that it seemed like Dig could get anything they wanted in Champion Select. They got Nasus. It was certainly very good in game one, and they never went back to it. Travis, did you hear anything behind the scenes on why they never went back to that Nasus pick?
No, actually, I should have probably asked about that in my interview, but I was actually pretty surprised as well. I don't know, maybe they just figured that it was a one-trick pony kind of deal. You never really know.
They certainly had other one-trick ponies they wanted to ride Olaf style into the sunset.
It didn't really work.
I don't know where Dig goes from here. This was a tough loss for them. This is another season of not making it to Worlds, falling flat. They didn't even necessarily do better than Spring Split after changing two members again.
Yeah, to get the hyped Zion and Ship.
Yeah, so where do we go, Travis? How many people are back? Kiwi Kid, Cutie Pie, Crumbs? Who's on the roster next season at this point?
I have no idea. I mean, I think that there's a lot of discussion right now about Dig and CLG, and certainly, whoever leaves or whoever gets put back down again as well and gets fourth place will probably be a lot of discussion around that as well. But I honestly don't think that the teams are probably looking at even considering this stuff yet until after PAX. And so, if they're not even thinking about it, it's hard for me to think about it, I would say. I mean, Dig is already such a strange team, too. You never really know who they're going to keep on the roster and who they're going to say goodbye to.
Absolutely. Yeah. I certainly wouldn't have picked Kiwi Kid being the support coming into this, and yet here he is.
I mean, I kind of agree with Travis that I don't think the teams are really making any decisions. We've seen people both accuse Kiwi Kid and Seraph of already being off the team. I don't think they're going to make any changes or even think about changes until relegations and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think Kiwi Kid had just a really bad series. Like, he was constantly getting picked off. Even in the game they won, like, they almost lost just because Kiwi Kid just kept dying on Thresh and just getting picked off. So I think, like, I don't know, it's really hard to think of Kiwi Kid returning for the next split.
Absolutely. And it's tough. It's where do you go from here? You're 5th or 6th place. I would guess we'll get to this later. You potentially are relegated. You need to, if you want to win a championship or even just win the North American region, you don't need to be a little bit better. You need to be a lot better than where they are now. And I'm not sure how that happens because the pieces, even individually, we did the CS at 10 article, Shifter, Zion, nobody there seems like an all-star, let's say, or someone that you could say, like, we're going to build our team around this guy. He will carry us to the future. Zion is very good at what he does, but how far does that get you? Shifter has that kind of passive play, stat building, Carmelo Anthony of League of Legends kind of thing. I just get worried. He's a basketball player. Shifter I'm worried that he's a guy that puts up stats but doesn't win games. And this is a criticism that people are leveling at Link now, and we'll get to that. But I just don't know if your dig is any one of those guys part of a championship team.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I think Shifter got overestimated by his run on Coast. Like, him being surrounded by bad players made him look better, I think. Although I think he's still a very skilled player, and I think he's actually really strong. His Ahri was actually surprised me in how cleanly he executed his Ahri play. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough for Dignitas. I think you brought up the point. It's really hard to improve, and we've seen both TSM and Dignitas try to make these big moves and roster changes to try to get to Worlds. And I think both of them are. I mean, Dignitas is not making it to Worlds, but I think TSM is probably not going to make it to Worlds either.
Yeah. Travis, I know you're there for some of the Challenger games that go on. Do you think that's an effective model for surfacing next-level talent, or do people have to look overseas, as they've been doing for the... I mean, as we've seen Alltech come in and be good, but mostly the new players that are bringing in energy or skill to North America are coming from overseas. Do you expect that to continue?
I mean, there seems to be some pretty good supports in Challenger. For instance, Bunny seemed to be having a lot of hype around him in some of the matches that we saw some of the games that we saw this weekend. So it's really hard to say. It's just I think that talent acquisition in North America is just in a really hard spot right now. So we'll have to see how this stuff pans out over the next couple of months. But again, I think we're just going to have an interesting offseason.
Yeah, interesting for sure. The other game over the weekend, or match series, CLG versus Curse, not as close by any stretch to the Dignitas TSM series, even not just final results, but even within the games themselves. Game 1, pretty close, till a horrendous play by Doublelift getting caught, and just, that was awful. And then two pretty serious stomps from there, and we're done. What stood out to you in that game?
For me, I think Curse, especially in Game 1, their team fighting, I think, was really strong. It really surprised me how they were working kind of as a unit. Like, typically, I think Nidalee falters in team fights, but he was actually executing Nidalee in team fights, I think, really strongly, Quas. And they kind of worked as a unit. I think their map movements weren't that good, and especially in Game 1, but I think they actually came out really strong. Like, everybody's flaming CLG and saying CLG sucks and all of that kind of stuff, but I think Curse actually played pretty strongly.
And you had predicted Curse going in. One of the few of us that predicted Curse. I was rooting for them, but didn't
and I got all of this hate from all these CLG fans.
Right. Travis, you and I both predicted CLG. It didn't work out. Did Curse just surprise you with how good they were? Were they better than you expected? CLG worse? What are your takeaways there?
I mean, Curse certainly looked good. I think their champion picks were just really solid. I had started to go back a bit on my prediction of CLG by the day before when I went to the studio and heard a lot of rumors about CLG possibly not being as strong as people had expected them to be coming back, and that Curse had just been playing with some really solid champion picks and some interesting things. So, like, if you look on my Twitter, like, before the matches started, I was like, I'm starting to think Curse might have this.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, Curse just showed up in a really good way. And then, you know, if you watch those games, CLG just didn't seem to know how to deal with the stuff that Curse was throwing at them, right? Like Nidalee was just all over the map, especially that first game, and they just never seemed to be able to like they had this weird thing where it's like they couldn't leave their base and they couldn't go out, and it was just kind of strange. So I don't know. It certainly wasn't, I think, what people expected. Even with Curse winning, I don't think anybody could have predicted that it was just going to be this like 3-0 stomp.
Yeah. You were there in person. Was that CLG on tilt? I mean, after that first game, that kind of kept it close, and then a crushing kind of throw/loss at in the final minutes, and then 2 stomps. I mean,
I spoke to Kelby even after the second match, and I had said, "How's the team doing?" He's like, "They're doing a lot better than they normally are after this." Like, I don't. I guess it depends on how you define tilt, but it didn't seem as though they were just all super depressed after the second game or the first game. I mean, I didn't get a chance to see them too much, but I certainly didn't feel as though it was just their emotions getting them. I really think that it was just like they were not playing good League of Legends.
Yeah, it didn't feel like tilt in the moment, but at the end, when you step back and then look at the results, it looks like tilt.
When I've been in tournament games and stuff where I've personally thrown the game, like I've missed a Sona ult or something, and I don't know how after Doublelift runs into the middle of the team and dies, basically, how everybody else on the team is not like, just like sitting there angry. Like I don't know, like that's how I would feel if I did it myself. Yeah. But I mean, they're professionals, they've been in this, they all have experience, like I think they could have gotten over it, but
if there's one thing they're good at, it's getting over defeat, right? That's the CLG history. They should be experts at that by now. So, I mean, I think credit to Curse for sure. They came in strong. They advanced. We'll talk about them a little bit more as we move next. CLG, crushing defeat. They invested a lot this season in getting back to Worlds, right? Like, you hire a coach who's overseas, who's bringing all of this Korean knowledge and expertise. Mm-hmm. He goes out on a limb and handpicks your new top laner when Nien backs out at the last minute. Some guy most of us over here have never heard of that even wasn't like dominating the Korean scene. He comes in, all of this, and then you end up 5th or 6th, and I don't know which way then. Either way, not where you'd wanted to be. A crushing defeat, I would assume, for everyone at CLG, and I'm not really sure where they go from here. Kind of same question for you, Travis, that we talked about, again, with Dignitas. Monte and Seraph probably on the bubble more than anyone else after this, but who's back next year? How does CLG get better?
Again, it's really hard to say. Like, if here's the reason why I don't like to make these predictions on, like, who's gone or whatever before even like Pax comes out, because let's say these guys go into relegation next after this, that's going to play a role, and I think the teams the players that they are able to get access to, like if you are one of these really good players or whatever in Europe or something like that, and you have a couple of places to go, do you join this team that like just survived relegation? If they come out and look really strong and Dignitas goes, right? Like, I just think it's a lot. It's really too early to say. I mean, Monte's like a bit of a separate issue. Maybe we'll get into that later on in the show, but it's hard to say.
I think we might as well dive into Monte now, not split it out. Kelby posted in the big Reddit thread about Reggie's video, etc., that they had some real limitations with having Monte overseas. If I were CLG, I think I would cut my ties at this point or find a way to shift the roles around to overcome that. This clearly wasn't enough. So you have to do more next season. And how much more is Monte really capable of giving you? He doesn't live in LA. He's not planning, as far as I know, on quitting his OGN job. He's probably giving you as much as he can. And so if you need more, you're not going to get it from him.
See, I'm not sure if... It's very strange, right? Because I feel like Reginald's vlog around this stuff and calling Monte a fraud or whatever has really tunnel visioned us into this perspective of like, it's Monte, like Monte at least is possible for it, or part of the reason for it, or he's not doing enough for the team or something along those lines. I think maybe that's the case if Monte has direct control over the roster, and I'm not saying maybe it is Monte, right? But I'm just thinking that it's kind of flawed reasoning to immediately say like, okay, Monte was part of the reason for this because
I agree.
you know, like what if it's just like maybe these guys just aren't as good as everyone thinks they are, right?
Yeah.
Like
That's fine.
Thorin, and I'm not saying this is the case, but Thorin has specifically shared his opinion that Link has always failed to, you know, produce the results that you know he was supposed to be. That he was always supposed to be this like really god tier NA solo queue superstar. Never really came out to be that, and Seraph obviously didn't fulfill expectations. Dexter came over high hopes, and I don't think it's been that good. And even Doublelift, I mean, Afro's the only person on that team, in my opinion, that you can look at right now and just be like, that's an all-star. Like, this is a guy that's really good. He's the guy, right? Like, everybody else is up for debate. I'm not saying they aren't, but everybody else is up for debate. So, I don't know if it's money, right? Like, it could be, but it's just strange that like one vlog has forced us down this path of like, Monty's the problem. They need somebody in the house or whatever. Maybe they just need roster changes.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think I'm actually kind of siding with Travis. I think that everybody's saying, oh, CLG lost because of the coach. And I think maybe if Monte was single-handedly chose Seraph, like, because Seraph, I think, was like the biggest mistake CLG made. I think he didn't really. I think Nien was like better than what Seraph. The team with Nien was better. So maybe if Monte was single-handedly was like, oh, we have to do this, and then maybe you can be like, okay, you made a mistake, and then you are going to be fired for your mistake or something like that.
Right.
But I think I agree with Travis. I think everybody's pointing this is at Monte, and I think that a coach isn't as important as people are making it out to be, I think.
That's certainly me, and I don't mean to put undue pressure on Monte, but I think that was clear, but even before Reginald's vlog, that was going to be a key talking point of the offseason for CLG. Again, it's the same question with Dignitas. You have to be, in theory, way better than you are now. You were a 5th or 6th place team. You're expecting to be a 1st place team, and not just somebody who, and this is, well, you know, it's part of the TSM conversation as well, not just somebody who gets to Worlds, but somebody who gets to Worlds and then does something good there.
Yeah.
They're a really long way from that, and they have to be looking at everybody and saying, is this guy part of the future? Or, like you said about Aframu, he's an all-star. Maybe you can build a team around him, but you need a whole team of all-stars if you want to compete at a world level, a world's level. They have to, everybody should be looked at, but I assume you start with Monte and Sarah for sure.
Yeah.
You start there. I don't know how much further it goes. I don't know if they make any changes, but I think if you want to be a world-talented team, you've got to keep going.
Yeah, no, it's very tough. It's really hard to get better. And I mean, we've seen C9, they just kind of had one roster and they've stuck with it this entire time and they've just always done well. That's like kind of like the model. And you can't just say like that's the model of success.
That's
like,
not a model.
So then what do you do? How do you replicate what C9 has?
I don't know. Tough questions ahead, certainly for Hotshot and Kelby trying to run that team for how to get better this offseason. We'll change gears entirely then.
Well,
oh, go ahead.
I have one
Or
last
not.
thing that's kind of, I guess maybe it's a little bit too late, but I thought one thing interesting that we saw in the playoffs, other than the base races, which were like really crazy, but we've actually kind of seen a little bit of shift in the meta. Like all of the NA games were like this 2v1, 2v0 kind of weird thing with the AD carry soloing. We saw that a lot in both TSM and in Curse's games. And I thought it was really interesting because I looked at the numbers a little bit before this, and in the last 2 weeks, in week 10 and 11 of NA, 90% of the games were 2v2. And then in the playoffs, every single game has not been 2v2, I think. And it's like really weird that we're seeing this shift in the playoffs, and I think this is where like these 2 weeks have come in, and it makes it really hard. So when we were looking at C9 and LMQ, who knows what they're going to pull out now? I think it was a really interesting weekend for games.
Did we have a patch change in between?
There was it was 412 on week 11, and now it's 414, I think.
So that's a big jump. I don't remember what's in each patch, but
there were like smaller patches, but
a lot of balance changes. I mean, I assume it is interesting that AD carries seem to be safer solo laners right now than what you traditionally think of
like
as top
that was
laners.
really weird.
Like you want to play Alistar top, but you have to put a support with him because otherwise.
Yeah.
And there are not a lot of 1v1 dueling. I assume that was teams protecting their fragile top laner from the other one or something like that. Travis, you're in the back. Do you hear talk about shifting meta or players grumbling or being excited about particular patches or anything there?
Not really. I think they just produce patches so quickly now that all the players have just gotten used to like And I actually think that they put out balance patches like a little too fast. I think it's hard for the layman to like even follow like what champions
Yeah.
are strong or whatever. And so I think I don't know. I miss like I. It's kind of exciting. Like I do think that they just need to find a balance where you have enough time for people to develop stuff, and you see this champion, and you figure out ways for people to deal with it, and fast enough that they can address problems and also keep the game interesting. So I don't know. It's kind of strange how quickly these things change these days.
Yeah, it did seem like, or I felt like I could see the fact that Curse and Dig had been scrimming together a lot. They seemed the most similar in terms of general play pattern and champion selection goals and that kind of thing. And certainly Curse was able to execute on whatever that particular meta that those two had sort of slipped into better than Dig was. But that did seem to be a particular model heading into this weekend as the way those two teams were playing. So we're going to circle back to predictions a little bit later, but we want to stop. There was a big news of Twitch being acquired not by Google, like everybody had feared, and some kind of YouTube merger and what that meant, but instead by Amazon, with whatever that means. Travis, I know you really wanted to make sure we had time for this on the show. What do you think of that deal?
Sure, I think that this is a really smart purchase by Amazon. They certainly have, like, if you look at Google and Amazon, first off, I suspect that part of the reason why Twitch has wanted to do this is just a guess, but that Twitch has wanted to do this is because the costs of running your own server infrastructure and all this stuff has got to be ridiculous. They always opted to go with the we'll build our own rather than the own 3D model of we'll just use other people's stuff, because the idea is that you save money in the long term. But as we've seen, they've struggled to keep up with the demand. I think it's been a little bit better this year than past years, but even then there's still problems. And they're constantly building this stuff out. And so when you're doing that, I don't think you're saving money, because eventually you're just building entire server farms over time and constantly. So I think Amazon and Google both had the big infrastructure to support something like this. So I suspect that this will be great from a service perspective, because Amazon has S3 and all that, which is, for those that don't know, their big server infrastructure. I think that it's a lot nicer than going to Google, because in fact, in their statement or their announcement around the purchase, they outlined that they would remain pretty independent in terms of the fact that they weren't going to be incorporated in, whereas I would have been very much not surprised to see them either initially get involved into YouTube or over time get melded into YouTube. So they keep the independence there. So I think that this allows us to see Twitch in a way that will continue to be like the good product that we all know. There's a lot of really cool tie-ins that can happen here. People are already talking around the fact that, in a lot of people's Twitch descriptions, a lot of streamers will promote products or whatever. I am sure that Amazon will get in on referral links and all that kind of stuff to a lot of their products. I could see, big discounts like Amazon Prime memberships being advertised by streamers and that kind of thing. So there's a great opportunity for Amazon to market their services here. We'll see. I see Hunter over there making weird faces. So why don't you chime in and I'll go back to my rant?
I think I get why this deal works for Twitch. You definitely get to cash out. Amazon Web Services is a perfect match for what you're doing anyway. You've kind of been stuck, you need an exit of some kind. And IPO or purchase, you definitely want to be purchased rather than have to go through all of that if you can. So it makes perfect sense. But I'm not totally sold on this as a purchase for Amazon. I don't see streamers driving a lot of referral clicks and selling a lot of product. Maybe it's a revenue path, but for a company of Amazon size, it's not significant. They're not a company with a history of selling ads, and if you buy something like Twitch, you need to sell a lot of video ads.
Yeah.
A lot of video ads. That's not what Amazon does. They have a streaming video service, but it's ad-free, right? You have to buy in, or some stuff is free, but mostly it's for Prime. It's a very different model. I'm not totally sold that this is a natural fit. The same way Google and YouTube buying Twitch, that seems like a totally natural fit, an extension of what they do. This is totally new for Amazon. Maybe it's just an investment, but doesn't seem like a slam dunk.
I think Amazon has kind of had a history of purchasing a bunch of different websites. They have actually a pretty large amount of different web properties that they just kind of stay out of and just kind of So I think for a consumer or something, and people who like Twitch, like most Twitch fans now, I think this is a little bit better than Google, who has a history of integration and that kind of stuff.
I agree with that. I think this is good if you're a Twitch consumer like we all are. I think this is good for you. There's no reason to be nervous or angry or anything.
Their game stuff is also being growing too. Like they're trying to get more into gaming and gaming services as well. So I think this makes a lot of sense for them as well. I think that there's a lot more in the long term and long run that we're going to be seeing. I think right now it makes a lot of sense for Google to purchase it because you can be like, well, they've got YouTube and they sell ads. But I think long term, Amazon is looking to get into a lot of these services. So I think down the road we'll see something where it's like, oh, that actually made a lot more sense. So, and I joked about this, but I do really, really want to see a Twitch Turbo subscription as part of my Amazon Prime. That would be really cool.
Well, I hope you get it. I mean, I have Amazon Prime as well. It's fine with me. I can then turn off ad block on Twitch and just get ad-free experience. Not that I would do that, of course, or whatever. But okay, so we'll do predictions for this weekend and then a tiny bit on Azir at the end. So, Travis, 4 teams left that could potentially go to Worlds, and then somebody getting knocked down to relegation. Where do you see things going from here?
So, are you guys ready for this?
Yeah, lay it on me. We're taking notes.
Yeah. All right. So we've got LMQ beating TSM, C9 beating Curse. Then we have the Dig CLG thing is just so hard to guess, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I actually think Dig is going to win and send CLG to relegation. Because I don't know, it's really hard to judge because you kind of have to know where TSM and Curse is.
Yeah.
But, like based on this past weekend, like, Dig did seem a lot stronger. And you gotta imagine CLG is just blah. Like, without getting too much into the drama, it does seem as though at some point in time, some CLG member was saying, like, oh, I don't know if Monte Cristo is valuable for us. You gotta imagine the next meeting between Monte Cristo and the team is gonna be a little bit of awkward, like, cricket noise or something. So,
yeah.
I just think internally those guys are probably not looking too good. People gotta wonder, like, if I'm Seraph, you gotta wonder if you're gonna be on this team at the start next year. You know, but Dignitas, they're all friends, so they're gonna get through this.
Well, on that note, I mean, maybe Reggie did the team a favor, the players in sense a favor, because now, like you said, everything points at Monte now, and the players can just kind of keep their head down and focus on the next game.
Or maybe Reggie
we could have been talking about Double Lift's crazy, throw at the end of that game, or whatever the bad play was, or whether they go on tilt or all of that stuff. But we spent a lot of time talking about Monte instead. Maybe that's perfect. Take the bullets for the team, stay off social media. The players get to just focus on the games.
Or maybe Reggie stirred up so much, like, anti-CLG, anti-Monte, all this crazy stuff. Like, I have CLG members telling me that Monte doesn't do anything. Maybe he's just, like, sealed their fate and they're headed towards relegation. Either way, I was doing predictions, and then I was rudely interrupted by one of these shows, so I'm going to finish. I've got CLG going to relegations, but really it's like a soft prediction. And then I've got TSM over Curse, though I think that could go either way at the end of the day, but I'm going to make a prediction. And then C9 over LMQ, I'm pretty confident in. So I think our teams will be C9, LMQ, and TSM, though Curse could be our XDG of this year's Worlds.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking kind of similar. I think LMQ, even though LMQ has kind of been on a downward trend, I think, and actually nobody's been talking about them much, they might not be as strong as people are expecting. I think that TSM, they're still going to beat TSM. And I think Curse versus C9, I think is actually, I don't know, I think it might be closer than we expect. Like, Cloud9 has had, like, the playoff pedigree, but I don't think they're going to go undefeated in this one. So, but I still think C9 is probably going to come out ahead, so LMQ and C9 just like Travis. And then I think the third place match will be Curse over TSM.
So you have Curse going to Worlds.
Yeah. Which would be really actually silly because all these other teams have made these huge plays to like bring in like foreigners and all that kind of stuff, and Curse has just kind of been riding it out like with their...
Right.
And then for relegation, I think... I guess... I don't know, I think CLG over Dignitas.
I'm with you on Cloud9 LMQ. I'm also picking Curse at this point. I didn't do it. I mean, I still think the storyline the storyline of CLG losing is great. It's just incredible drama and all of this stuff. The higher the stakes, the bigger the fall. That same is true for TSM. The support that you kicked out, whatever, then takes a team that was 6th place last split. No other changes other than him. Takes a 6th place team and takes them to Worlds while you sit at home. That's just like, that's great. That is delicious, delicious, delicious drama for sure. God. And then Dignitas looked better. And if CLG was tilting last weekend, I assume all this drama just pushes them into a funk further. If they needed a sports psychologist to deal with losses middle of the series this whole week or whatever, all of that stuff, it's got to be a mess. So I would pick Dig over them. So that's CLG in relegation, TSM missing Worlds, Cloud9, LMQ, Curse. Congratulations, Curse, for sure, on making Worlds. Nobody would have predicted that coming into the split.
Oh my God, yeah.
Crazy.
Especially because I remember, now that you bring it up, like at the beginning of the split, everybody was hyping Dignitas was going to be stronger because of their shifter and Zion. Then they're going to, like, TSM is bringing in their new support, and everybody thought all of these teams would kind of overshadow Curse.
Right.
And now Curse is making kind of a late, and we saw that throughout the beginning of the season, but now Curse is making a late game surge, I think.
Like specials
by the way,
Destiny.
Just my final thoughts on this. What a fucking disappointment at the end of this split. Like, I remember at the start of the split, I was like, oh my gosh, all of these teams are so good. Like, Dignitas, like, everybody was all close to neck and neck. And at the end of it, it's just sort of like, well, TSM was kind of sucky at the end there, but it looks like they were able to beat Dig, who just completely fell apart. CLG didn't really become anything. In fact, they might be headed to relegation. And I guess Curse might go? Maybe TSM. Like, it's just like, it's all, it's just...
If this is not the NA return to glory.
Shattered dreams.
Not the NA return to glory. I mean, I don't know. Maybe C9 or LMQ just stomps everybody and we can ride in and think NA's got it. This one team will do it. But I agree. This is not, if this was this is not the season NA goes to Worlds and makes some noise, at least not right now. I'd love to be wrong. And Curse's 4th place Destiny is 4th place at Worlds, not 4th place in NA. But that doesn't look very likely.
Where did we go wrong? You know, what happened somewhere in the split, you know?
Well, you could
you go find the stats thing where all of a sudden just like NA just tanks.
Yeah,
I mean, there was that like couple of weeks where everybody just lost to everybody.
Yeah.
It was like 1-1, 1-1, 1-1.
Yeah.
Well, and this might refute some of the influx of foreigners thing. If the teams that really spent money and were bringing in foreigners to buck up their squad don't end up making it to Worlds, I mean, that's not very scientific, but it didn't seem to. TSM could stop it. Things could change. They look really different. But right now, all of those moves don't seem to have particularly paid off for those teams. If you see... Well, putting LMQ aside, but if you see C9 and Curse go, that's pretty homegrown in one sense. Taking it further, I don't know. I'm rooting for Curse though. That's the only. I'm rooting for Curse. I'm rooting for Special and Curse, Vengeance, Justice, whatever you want to call it.
Oh yeah, that would be hilarious. I completely forgot.
I mean, I think that's one of the best storylines. If that third, fourth place match is Special versus TSM, that's just fantastic for everyone.
Well, I know we're running low on time here, but there's this Sand dude. Hunter.
Yeah, Azir. So I'll go first. My gut reaction was to groan and then roll my eyes and then sigh. This guy has just got so, he has a auto attack, angled, extending thing, this giant wall that hits people can pass through that other people can't. A passive that's actually an active. It's like they're not enough actives. We'll give them another active where you go and like activate a fallen turret.
Very situational.
It's hard to understand how this. It feels like he's playing a different game. Like it really feels like he's in a different game than League of Legends. Map activations. It's hard for me to process all of this in one and figure out where he fits into the meta or what kind of team comp you build about him. Seems like a guy I'm going to ban in every game for the rest of eternity because he's just too weird. Well, unless he's like Heimerdinger level useless, and then you just don't worry about it. Speaking of Heimerdinger,
I think neither of you guys will get this reference, but he seems a lot to me like Earth Spirit in Dota, and I think Earth Spirit is just like way too complicated. Like you know Earth Spirit?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about Earth Spirit, because I don't know. Tell me all about Earth Spirit, Travis.
We're running low on time, Hunter. All right, we don't
no.
I will say
I've made sure we've got extra time. Tell me all about it.
I think Azir is going to be quite good. A lot of people say that for a while they were rehashing. Get your hand out of
No, I want to know about Earth Spirit. Please, Travis.
This is a League of Legends show. Hunter,
Pure
okay?
esports.
We talk about League of Legends esports. Now
Now get back to
Azir.
Azir.
He's a mess.
has a lot of really unique mechanics.
Yes.
I think that he is great because in the past, like, oh look, it's just another, champion. It's just like all the other champions. I think he fits well within their, like, we're putting out some really new stuff that's going to shake up things. I think that he has the ability to be very strong or very useless. I'm not sure which yet.
Take the classes.
But I think he could be very strong. I like his stuff. One of the things, if I can take this off so I can read, one of the things that they talked about in the description is how they wanted to make sure that like the minions and stuff have active input, and so that he's like very, you can do a whole lot of things as opposed to like Heimerdinger who just kind of throws things down. So I think he'll be really cool. I think he looks cool. I don't know if he'll be useful, but I expect at some point in time he'll see competitive play.
I mean, he's definitely paradigm breaking. It's not like AD carry where you have like poke on Q, dash on W, or dash on E and steroid on W and that kind of thing. Like, he's a very different champion. He's just so different.
Crazy abilities all around.
Yeah. Okay, well, obviously we don't know anything about him because we read it for like 5 seconds before we started taping, but we'll find out a lot more. He's probably a month away or whatever at least. They're not going to release in the middle of Worlds, so it's going to be a little while. An exciting weekend at PAX. Travis, you're going to be at PAX live doing interviews for sure. Anything else going on at PAX that you're going to be spearheading?
Hunter, I am so excited about PAX. This is going to be incredible. North American regionals. We're going to see if Curse or TSM goes to Worlds. And I like how we're just all assuming C9 or LMQ.
Yeah.
And by the way, tomorrow I will be joining Hotshot GG at the Microsoft store up in Seattle for a fan meet.
Are you bringing those glasses?
People can check that out. I will probably not be bringing these glasses because I like to see the people that I'm meeting. But yeah, just check out my Twitter or Hotshot's Twitter. We both tweeted about it, and so if you're in the area, check it out. Although by the time you watch this, you'll probably only have a couple hours. By the way,
Travis is going to be at PAX. You can follow all of his content on ongamers.com or on YouTube, and we'll see you next week. I'm serious, we're going to cut that out. I don't want to do a lot of edits, but like that's a bridge too far.
well, Hunter, no fun.